Nothing in this podcast is intended as investment advice, and the people in this podcast may hold positions in the stocks they talk about. Do not buy any investment based solely on a tip or recommendation. Please do your own research.
So here we are at Midweek Takeaway with Callum Sommerton from Chill Brands. The resurrection has occurred, and welcome back, Callum.
Hi, Kev. How you doing? It's been a very long time, and it's good to be back.
Well, as I know, it hasn't been a long time because we've probably been in communication every week since it's all happened. But that said, tell us what you can tell us about what's happened. Let's deal with the past first, and then let's look forward to the hopefully very positive future.
Yeah, for those of you who have followed the Chill Brands Group story closely, you'll be well aware of everything that happened in 2024 and subsequently. For those of you who don't know, it's all very well documented. It's in the sort of our flows. There's also, unfortunately, a lot of press about it all. But what I would say is, starting in the second quarter of 2024, various actions were taken by various parties in different places, and the less that's said about that, the better. But all of that set into motion a chain of events that have been very difficult for the company. One of those being that the company's clearly been suspended since the 3rd of June in 2024. First, in relation to some corporate issues, again, which I won't go into, but then subsequently, as a result of it not being able to get its audit out on time, in time for the end of July 2024. And that set into motion, as I say, this sort of chain of events whereby we have been catching up and trying to put the company back onto an even keel, set right a number of the wrongs, whether that be relating to advisors appointed during that difficult period, or whether it be just logistical issues. When the new board, I call them the new board, they've been in seat for a year now, but when the new board and I came back into the company on the 4th of June, we were faced with a situation, notwithstanding those quite controversial issues, where our bank accounts were frozen, our financial records were stuck with legacy providers in the United States, and we really were fighting a battle just to get the sort of primary mechanics of the company working again. So it's been a very, very long and difficult period. We've had to get new bank accounts. There's a lot that I could say about the state of the British banking landscape and how much they want to do and support business. But all of that has now sort of subsided, and we've gotten ourselves into a position where very shortly, or by the time this podcast goes out, we will have published 24 months of financial reports, some audited, some unaudited, within the space of 5-6 weeks. We will have taken some serious steps towards addressing any of those governance concerns that started to arise in 2024. And really, we've had to put the bones of the company back together. And all of that during a year when the landscape for our core product was changing so dramatically that we really needed to kick on. It was very difficult to do that, but here we are, we're still alive, we're still fighting, and there are some really, really positive things that have come out of all of this as well.
So, having dealt with the past, we now come to the immediate situation. Jonathan Swan has come up and basically helped save the company. I think it's fair to say that, in terms of his £1 million investment, or him and another, I think it is. So, how does that position yourself now, before we talk about all the opportunities that are now available?
Yeah, there are a number of people who've come into this most recent funding round, Jonathan chief among them, and I'm very grateful, as all of us at the company are, to him and the others who've backed us at this time. I suppose that the current position is one where we are still climbing our way out of the financial impact of that 12-18 month period. There are still, legacy liabilities that are being dealt with, but they are entirely manageable, and they're being managed. We have got, obviously quite expensive lawsuits that took place in the United States. We've got to clearly deal with those. However, all of that is very much in hand, and it's really a case of making sure, and we are, that the business is able to continue not only trading but growing. And this is a business that is now, as I'll come to explain, really competing on a number of levels and growing at quite a rate. I don't want to throttle it by any means, but sometimes we need to do that because we still are burning through those legacy liabilities. So that's currently the position. We are funded, we are secure, we're in a position where we're able to go out and go again, and that's the most important thing here. Clearly I would like to be in a position where the business has a completely clean slate, but we will get there sooner rather than later.
So from that perspective, you anticipate that the legacy things will be sorted within the next few months?
Yeah, but very much so. I mean, we're dealing with, as I say, litigation costs, things like that. We have a number of, as we've referred to in one of our reports, live matters in relation to certain advisors that were appointed in that 2024 period, and it's quite possible that that will yield some sort of fruit for the company at some point, but at the very least it will protect our position. But yes, certainly, the liabilities that are there from a kind of legacy period are being dealt with, and they are by no means insurmountable to us, and certainly not, preventing us from moving on forward.
So can we safely say now that Chill.com is now owned by the Chill Brands company?
Yeah, whatever happened, and the company makes no comment on that, but whatever happened, that domain is now very firmly under the ownership and control of Chill Brands Group PLC.
Very good. Right. Now we've dealt with all of this, let's talk about the business. So tell us how you came about to be where you are today and where you hope to be in a few months' time.
Yeah, so the business has been on quite an organic arc, really. Everybody who's followed it for a while will know that it started in oil and gas, but it started with CBD consumer products, particularly those in the smoking cessation space. We moved into the vape space, and particularly with a significant UK launch in August 2023, and that went extraordinarily well for us. We managed to get the product into mass retail distribution, WH Smith's, Morrison's, some of these other big retailers, along with a very, very large and growing network of convenience stores. And what we did with those convenience stores, and this is all quite relevant to the position today, is that because we had a differentiated product, something that required a little bit of education, a little bit more selling, rather than just a standard vaping nicotine product, we had a zero nicotine disposable. We developed a network through an agency of very talented, very hardworking salespeople and formulas for how we would go out and sell to these stores. We then faced the new regulations on vaping. So the UK government, first under the Conservatives and then subsequently under Labour, sought to ban disposable products. Disposable vape products are those that are neither refillable, rechargeable, nor have a replaceable element to them. So for a product to be compliant today, you need to be able to replace the fluid, the tank. You need to be able to charge the battery, and you need to be able to replace the coil if there is a heating element in that particular product. And what that meant was that our original line of vapes were banned from the 1st of June 2025. But even in anticipation of that, retailers and brands started to heavily discount those sorts of products on the market. So our existing base of business that we had built started to go away. A huge problem for us, you might think, and yes, it was. We had very much anticipated getting out a reusable, rechargeable pod device far in advance of that ban. However, due to all of these various corporate issues, the fact that we didn't have bank accounts for quite some time, the fact that we didn't have access readily to resources, meant that it was nigh on impossible for us to actually put spend behind the products. And then when we came back to it, myself and a couple of others involved in the business sat down and thought, well, actually, we are in a position where we are competing with, through the issuance and the release of our own product, people who have vastly more resources than us, whether that be big tobacco or other incumbent vaping brands from China. They have established brands. They have more money to throw at ancillary, sort of secondary fun activations than we have to launch our entire product. We were cash strapped at the time. However, what we did have was an asset that we didn't have when we set out on this journey, and that is a sales team and a formula and a network of stores and of distribution. We've been the brand. We know what it is to be the brand. We know the difficulties. We know the regulations. We know the people. We know the various distributors in the scene. And so we've got there an IP asset, some knowledge. It's an intangible, but it's one that I think is very, very valuable. We took our sales team back in-house from the agency that we were working with in November 2024. And we set about building an agency model that was more affordable to brands, but would also deploy the knowledge that we have built and developed over the course of building our own brand and product, and offer that as a service to other companies and brands in vaping, in nicotine pouches, and in other consumer product categories. And that has gone, I have to say, very, very well. We have attracted a number of quite high profile clients. We continue to do so, and you'll see that bear fruit and sort of move down the track in the coming months. And we're in a position where we can say, if you had a product that you wanted to launch in the UK market, if you have an existing brand that you want to perform better, if you want access to convenience stores, specialist retailers, pharmacies, be that again in nicotine or outside of the space, we can provide that service without burning you on cost, but still for our business, taking a retainer and commissions that are quite healthy. And that is the position we find ourselves in today. That is really the core focus. The key, I suppose, if I was to give you an elevator pitch, is that CHLL Brands Group, and specifically CHLL Connect, that distribution subsidiary, will become the route to market specialist for regulated and novel products in the UK. That's really what we're trying to do here, and I think we're quite good at it.
Okay, so why do you think you're good at it? Who's been doing it before?
Well, if you look at the agencies that are out there, the people who are providing this service, there aren't all that many of them. There are distributors who are sectorally focused. They will churn through vapes, and we've dealt with many of them when we were on the way up with CHLL Zero. They're looking for volume, they're looking for price, and they end up commoditizing the products, really. So you've got a race to the bottom. So our ethos is, no, let's not do that. Let's protect the value chain. Let's make sure that we actually plan out our retail journey, make sure that products are being sold to the right people at the right time, at the right costs. And so they are then ultimately passed on to the consumer in a way that means brands don't continuously have to discount. Outside of that, there actually aren't all that many people offering this service. There are plenty of sales agencies, but there are fewer sales agencies that can offer a genuinely consultative approach that will give you, that inherent knowledge of having done it themselves. And we've been at the sharp end of all the difficult things, the cash flow of ordering products. We've been at the sharp end of trying to pitch our product into major stores, the regulations changing, the market changing. We know all of that. We've seen it. We've lived it. And that gives us an edge when we go out and talk to brands, because they want someone who's been in the trenches and can be in the trenches with them. That's what's made us an attractive proposition to these brands. The other thing is, rather than offering a solely exclusive model, we have a number of models that we offer to businesses and brands that are wanting to sell their products here. We have our non-exclusive team. That is the most interesting part of this, I suppose. A lot of the sales agencies, including the one we used for CHLL Zero, were running purely exclusive teams. It meant that you would have to pay quite a significant amount to them to resource a team of 5, 6, 10, 15, whatever it is you want at whatever scale. And they will only work on your brand. And that's great, and you do get traction. But the problem with only focusing on one brand and one product is it closes doors. The CHLL guy might turn up one day, he's selling one product, and the convenience store owner doesn't like that product. That is a wasted visit, and it means he's got to go away. When we've got a non-exclusive team, and by non-exclusive I mean they are not, tied to one brand, they're brand and product agnostic. They have a catalogue of products. Some of them are vapes, some of them are nicotine pouches, some of them are beverages, some of them are confectionery items. We have personal care products. We have all of these things within that catalogue. And what we're able to do to that retailer is say, look, you have a convenient single point of ordering, of finding and sourcing new novel products. You can trust us to do that. We are, in a way, a convenience store to convenience stores. And what it means is that the conversation is never wasted. You open that door, you speak to the decision maker. If they don't like vapes, they might like pouches. If they don't like pouches, they might like beverages. There's always a conversation to be had. There's always a new door to be opened, and they're then in our network. And once they're in our network, there's a lot of things we can do with them. Activations, sales, sampling. Every single convenience location is of some value to us, whether they're purchasing regularly on any particular category or not. And that's what works in our model.
So in order size, could we see these teams producing £10 million worth of orders a year, or is that pie in the sky, or is it much more than that? What's correct?
Yeah, as I said, and what I realized I didn't refer to at the time is we've got this non-exclusive team. We've also got the provision and the ability to offer exclusive teams to our brands. There's one that we are working on at the moment whereby they are wanting an exclusive team that only represents their brand in the UK. They know it's high potential. We know it's a high volume in terms of sales, and it does shift its product. And when you've got that team and the model is proven and the brand is proven and there's product market fit, you can then progress onto an exclusive team. And once you've done that, then yes, I think the numbers that you're talking about are not outside the realms of possibility. Of course, we take a margin on the sales that we make. We act as a distributor. In some cases, we buy and sell the product. In other cases, we just take a commission on what we sell. But yeah, I think that we're in a position today with this model where we are far more likely to increase our top line and indeed the profitability on that because we're exposed to so many more brands. It's less risky. You are able to go out and push a much wider array of products. We don't need to focus on all of that product development cycle, which is quite expensive, time consuming, difficult. Instead, we can take these products, back the winners and go out and sell them. So, I do think that we will see quite a significant uptick in top line.
So what it seems to me is that you, on the ground, you're creating sort of an Amazon.com for novel products. So how do you see that's going to translate into chill.com so that, these things can be pushed through chill.com?
Yeah, in a sense, I think, as I say, for me the strapline would be that we'll be that route to market specialist for novel products in the UK. In terms of how it translates to chill.com, there will be some cross sort of work going on there. There are some brands on the site already that I think would lend themselves very well to that retail network of ours. At the same time, there are other brands that may want some lift in e-commerce. The reality with chill.com, and I make no bones about this, is that it needs to perform better. We have a credible marketplace that, as things stand, looks as it should, performs in terms of its functionality as it should, but does not yet transact enough. And as I've said in the reports, and I think I've made that quite clear, it needs to do better. And a lot of that is getting traffic to that website. It clearly needs more eyeballs. We've been in, for the longest time since the company was in CBD, very much restricted in terms of what we can do on the marketing front. CBD is notoriously difficult to advertise, as are other functional ingredients, ashwagandha, nootropics, things of that nature. However, we have now found ways and means for us to conduct pay-per-click advertising. We are trialing that at the moment on Meta platforms, that's Facebook and Instagram. We will do the same on TikTok. We will eventually progress onto Google AdWords and other pay-per-click advertising platforms. And all of that comes at a cost, yes, but it's a cost that can be recycled to us both in spend returned from eyeballs getting to that site and also in terms of the insights that we're getting. For the first time, because we are able to run these adverts, we're able to see exactly who really is engaging with the content we put out there. It's helping us to better define consumer personas. And at the same time, it's allowing us to recalibrate the way that chill.com exists today. And I suppose if I was to make, to me, it's a radical statement. It won't be to most people. At the moment, that website focuses, if you look at it today, on wellness. And what is wellness? Well, it's an area that Holland and Barrett and Boots and all of these other sort of incumbents are very focused on, but it doesn't really mean all that much to the layperson. I think we've got to be very much clearer on our value proposition on chill.com because when we do start driving serious traffic to that site, they need to understand what they're getting to and where they need to go on the site and what they should be buying. And so we are recalibrating that website entirely in terms of its value proposition, its messaging, its navigation, all of those things with the support of conversion rate optimization specialists, with our ad guys, with our web developers, to be focused on a single area, and that area is stress. Now, that manifests in different ways, physical health, mental health, all of these areas. But if we can really refocus that website and do it very much, as quickly as we can, as efficiently as we can, but we do need to make some radical changes. I think that if we can do that, then this site will start to perform. E-commerce has always been a long play for us. It's a very difficult thing and it takes time. However, I think that we really are turning a corner with it now. I suppose bring it back to your question and land the plane. How do Chill Connect, the distribution division, and Chill.com interface with each other? At the moment, there's a bit of cross-pollination between brands and products that are on each side of this business. But as things stand, they're quite different beasts.
Yeah. Okay. So I think this is a very good review of where we're at. We can't really talk about any news because ultimately you haven't RNS'd any news. But once that starts to come and the deals start to be signed, then I'm sure there's going to be a lot of news coming.
Yeah, absolutely. There have been a lot of things happening behind the scenes. I suppose if you were to characterize the company's, last run of action into 3 6-month periods, you have the 6 months starting on the 4th of June, 2024. And what we saw there was really a fight for survival, to be totally candid, and recovery. And during that time, the business was very difficult to progress. We didn't, as I say, have access to a lot of our resources at that time, but we were fighting fires on all fronts. We came through that period. The next period from there and takes us into the start of 2025 really was a period where we redefined our model. We refocused, we developed the Chill Connect division. We determined that serious changes needed to be made on Chill.com. And I think that is the point at which the business started to diverge from its past course onto the course that it's on today. I think it's a much better and much healthier one. Something I didn't mention earlier as well, when we were talking about why we've taken this decision on distribution, is that instead of focusing on our own brand, we are much less at risk and much more diversified in terms of our product and brand interests than we've ever been with our distribution company. And what that means is that we are less exposed to serious shocks to the system. Shocks like regulatory changes, shocks like retailers not liking, a product that we launch or list. Those are all of the risks that you run into if you are a single product, single brand company. We're a multi-product, multi-brand company, and on that basis, really, we live and die by how much we can sell. And as things stand, we have continuous growth of our sales volumes week on week, month on month, across lots of different categories. To throw an example out there, you may be familiar with the Dubai chocolate trend that took off earlier this year, very much courtesy of TikTok. And we contributed to that. We were buying those products and selling them, shifting them through consumer outlets, convenience store retailers, and it massively helped our volumes. It also helped us to open new doors that had no interest in nicotine alternatives. They wanted confectionery. So it's a bit of a segue, but again, bringing it back round, the final 6 months in that period is where we sit squarely today. And what does it look like? Well, it looks like bringing the company back to market. It looks like scaling out the business that we have got in terms of Chill Connect. It's making those radical changes to Chill.com and really, bedding in and getting ready to scale. And that's where we are today.
Very good. Well, we look forward to speaking to you in the not too distant future when you come back to the market and also, as some of these things develop. So good luck and congratulations in surviving this period of time.
Thank you, Kev. Cheers.
This podcast was brought to you by Roast PR Limited. If you would like to appear on a future episode of The Sunday Roast, please email admin@thesundayroast.net.